Five young men drove away from a college basketball game on a February night in 1978, traveling toward the homes where their families waited. Somewhere along the route, their vehicle veered east into the freezing elevations of the Plumas National Forest. None of them arrived at their destination. The group was known locally as the Boys. Ranging in age from 24 to 32, they were bound by their shared experiences in a local rehabilitative program. They managed varying degrees of mild intellectual disabilities and mental health challenges, and as a result, their routines were strictly maintained. They lived with their parents, followed set curfews, and rarely ventured outside their familiar neighborhood comforts. This Friday night was a rare, highly anticipated excursion. They drove an hour north to watch a Chico State basketball game, cheering from the stands. After the game ended, they stopped at a convenience store for snacks and soda, climbing back into the car around 10 p.m. for the straightforward 1-hour drive south. Their own basketball tournament was scheduled for the very next morning, and their uniforms were already laid out on their beds at home. No evidence in their history or their habits suggests they would voluntarily abandon the highway to drive into a dark, high-altitude wilderness. The drive from Chico back to Yuba City is a straight shot down Highway 99. Instead, the driver made a sharp eastern turn onto the Oroville-Quincy Highway. This route climbs away from the valley, winding into the mountains of the Plumas National Forest. They continued until the paved road ended. At an elevation of over 4,000 feet, their vehicle eventually sank into a snowdrift, leaving them stranded in an environment with no light, warmth, or cellular communication. Further down that road, a man named Joe Shones was already stuck, having suffered a mild heart attack while trying to push his own car out of the snow. Around midnight, he reported seeing two sets of headlights illuminating silhouettes of a group of men, along with what looked like a woman and a baby, walking and talking in the darkness. Shones pulled himself from his car and yelled for help. According to his account, the moment his voice carried through the trees, the headlights snapped off. The conversation stopped. The figures remained silent in the dark. While Shones later suggested his exhaustion might have influenced his perception, the physical reality remained unchanged. The five men were now isolated on an impassable trail, miles from any known landmark. When the men failed to return, law enforcement launched a search of the foothills, trying to retrace any path that could lead into the mountains. A winter storm soon buried the region in 9 inches of fresh snow, creating conditions so treacherous they nearly claimed the lives of the search crews. The weather forced authorities to halt the operation entirely until the spring melt. Before the snow became impassable, a ranger found Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego sitting on an unpaved road. It was unlocked and the window was rolled down. The keys were missing, but the car was otherwise undisturbed. Given the rocky, uneven surface of the trail, the heavy, low-clearance sedan should have sustained significant damage. Yet an inspection of the undercarriage revealed no scratches or dents. Whoever drove the car that night navigated the dark, rugged terrain with extreme precision. The car wasn't deeply stuck. A few men could have pushed it free, and the cabin offered immediate shelter from the wind. Instead, the group left the vehicle behind to walk into the sub-zero woods. In June, 4 months after the disappearance, bikers exploring near Bucks Lake discovered an abandoned Forest Service trailer. It was located 19 miles away from the abandoned car. Inside, they found the remains of Ted Ware. He was wrapped in bedsheets, his feet were severely frostbitten, and he had lost nearly half his body weight. His beard growth suggested he had survived inside the trailer for up to 13 weeks. Ware lived for months surrounded by resources. The trailer was stocked with winter clothing, heating supplies, and enough military rations to feed the entire group for an entire season. Only 12 cans had been opened. A massive reserve of food sat just feet away, untouched. Searchers soon found the remains of William Sterling and Jack Madruga 5 miles south of the trailer, and Jack Hewitt's remains 2 miles to the northeast. All 3 had died from exposure during the trek. Gary Mathias's tennis shoes were found on the trailer floor near Wire's bed, but Mathias himself was gone. Despite decades of searching the surrounding wilderness, no physical evidence of his fate has ever been recovered. This sequence of events is difficult to reconcile. The 19-mile hike through deep snow shows an immense will to survive, Yet the subsequent failure to use the food and heat inside the trailer contradicts every basic survival instinct. Understanding their actions requires looking at the group's internal dynamics. Mathias and Wire often took a leadership role. Because the others relied on them for direction, any error in judgment by the leaders would have been followed by the rest of the group. Mathias had a friend in nearby Forbestown, and he may have attempted a detour that led to a missed turn. Once the car was stuck, the cold and isolation likely triggered a shared panic, causing the group to abandon their only shelter and follow a misguided path into the forest. This contrasts with the possibility of foul play. Shones' account describes a group that actively hid. Shutting off headlights and falling silent at the sound of a human voice indicates a deliberate effort to avoid being seen. This brings new context to the state of the car. Despite the sub-zero storm, a window was left rolled down. It's a detail that aligns with a driver trying to hear external movement, monitoring the woods for a potential threat before the group finally abandoned the vehicle. Both theories end at the same conclusion, a collision between mental vulnerability and an environment that offered no margin for error. The Yuba County Five were defined by their friendship and their reliance on one another. They lived their lives in the safety of their homes, yet they died scattered across the wilderness of an impassable mountain range. The true catalyst for that night's detour remains missing, so long as Mathias's final path is unknown. Their story is a stark illustration of how quickly the logic and safety of the modern world fall away when the environment turns hostile.